go to page 98 in your journal and get the definition for repeated solution. Next, take a look at example 1 in your notes packet for solving a polynomial equation by factoring. So we're going to do kind of the same thing we did in the last chapter, except instead of solving quadratics, we're solving a cubic function here, so polynomials. The steps for this would be set the equation equal to 0. Step 2 would be to factor. And step 3 would be to set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So let's take a look at the first one. I know I can take a GCF out of this, so what's my GCF? Yeah, my GCF should be 2x, and it's already equal to 0, so step 1 is good to go. So I get 2x, and then what's left over? X squared minus 6x plus 9, all equal to 0. So now I can factor x squared minus 6x plus 9. That's a perfect square trinomial, so I can factor that into x minus 3 times x minus 3. Now that I've fully factored my polynomial, I can set each factor equal to 0. So 2x equal to 0, x minus 3 equal to 0, and x minus 3 equal to 0. When I divide by 2 for my first one, I get x equals 0. When I add 3 for my next one, I get x equals 3. And I'll get x equals 3 again over here, but I don't have to write it twice in my final answer. I can just say 0 and 3. Those are my final answers. We call 3 a repeated solution, which you just got the definition for. And we also say that 3 has a multiplicity of 2, which just means it shows up in the factors twice. Now take a look at example 2 in your notes. We're going to find the zeros and then sketch a graph of the function. So we're going to find the zeros the same way. Make sure it's set equal to 0, so negative 2x to the 4th plus 16x squared minus 32 equals 0. And then let's take a GCF out. I'm going to take negative 2 out, and when I divide everything by negative 2, what's left? X to the 4th minus 8x squared plus 16. Remember, all the signs change when I divide by negative 2. Now I'm going to factor this polynomial, and this is in quadratic form, so I can say x squared minus 4 times x squared minus 4. And then I know that x squared minus 4 can be factored. It's a difference of squares, so it can be x minus 2 and x plus 2. And I can do that again for both parts. Now I want to set each of my factors equal to 0. If I set negative 2 equal to 0, that doesn't make sense, so that just drops out. And then I'm going to set x minus 2 equal to 0 and x plus 2 equal to 0. I don't need to write it again the second time because that just gets me the same answers. So my two answers will be positive 2 and negative 2. And these are the zeros of my function. And remember, they both have a multiplicity of 2, and they're both repeated because they show up twice in our factor. Now we want to sketch the graph. So first I'm going to look at the highest exponent and the sign in front of it. And the highest exponent is even, and the sign is negative. So to do our arrows, we know they're going to be going down and down. And then we want to make an XY table. And before we were going in our calculator and getting from negative 2 to 2. But now we want to get the zeros. So negative 2 and 2. And then we want to get one number less than the smaller 0, so negative 3. One number in between the two zeros, so 0. And one number greater than the biggest 0, so 3. and then go to your graphing calculator and fill in the table for y. So I filled in my table and plotted -2, 0, and 2, 0. And if I look at the graph in Desmos, it looks something like this. So it's a giant M, sort of. So if I go to my graph here and I estimate, all right, -350 would be way down here, and 3 -50 would be way down here. And then 0 -32, well, that would also be pretty far down. So you can kind of guess where your points would be. They're off this graph here. And then we're going to sketch our curve and make it like an upside down W or like an M. And that's how we sketch our graph.